So the big question is this: how do most agents who struggle to get the information that most successful agents hoard to themselves grow and prosper without this information? That's the big question, and this video cast is the answer. Welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. I'm your host, Pat Hyben.
Congratulations to Latitude Realty, our newest broker in the Rebus University's Preferred Partners Program. Brokers like Ameriteam Realty, Dunes Properties, Impact Real Estate, Long and Foster. Yes, Long and Foster with 11,000 agents in multiple states. Plumtree Realty, Real Estate Professionals, Realty Ohio, Remax Advantage, Remax Essential, Agent Strong. These brokers have taken it upon themselves to get their agents significant discounts on all of the 12 Rebus University courses. Their agents are learning from the best and producing like maniacs. If you're an agent at one of these companies, go to rebusuniversity.com right now and start learning today. If you want unpublished pricing for your agents, like these brokers have done, go to hybendigital.com/teams or simply call Catherine Brower at 843-749-9900. That's 843-749-9900. Your agents will be impressed.
And now, for the review of the day. Got a 5-star review from Pole Fitness. She says, great podcast. I'm actually a title company rep. However, this podcast offers me great industry insight, and I can also implement many of the sales tips into my business. I listen every day. Pole Fitness. Send an email to Catherine, Catherine, Catherine at rebusuniversity.com. Catherine has an incredible program that we're offering title and mortgage companies to give out as gifts to agents, memberships into rebusuniversity.com. And it's really turned out to be something that a few mortgage and title companies have signed up, are very excited about. So definitely Pole Fitness. If you're getting this, if you're out there, get a hold of Catherine. Catherine at rebusuniversity.com, Catherine with a C. Keep the comments coming, guys. I love them. And remember, I eat feedback for breakfast, so give me a 1-star review if you want, or a 5-star review if you want. I don't care. And the more reviews we get, the better guests we get. So please, subscribe first, and then leave us a review, or wherever you're listening. Okay, Rockstar Nation, I have a great guest today coming from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I got Coach Rich Fino on the line, and Rich is doing a lot of intrinsic study and coming up with some amazing things with regards to agent succession plans. Right, that's right. You may remember the episode we did with Carol Greco at Long and Foster, who was able to sell her business and did very well. One of the best sales and most professional sales I've seen in a long time of a team business. And Rich has kind of taken that and taken 32 other agents who have sold their businesses or are in the process of selling their business or building businesses to sell, and created some things with it and is teaching agents about it. And we're going to talk today about all the do's and don'ts you need to know about, well, quite frankly, selling your individual book of business, which I think a lot of people don't believe that they can do. And Rich is going to show you that yes, you can, and you need to start thinking about that now. So without further ado, Rich, welcome to Real Estate Rockstars.
Pat, thank you very much. Actually, before I even get into that, I just want to take the time to thank you. Your contributions to myself professionally and what you've done for the industry overall with this program has been significant. So thank you again very much for what you do, and I hope you do it for many, many years to come.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So Rich, let's talk about this. Get deep down. Well, first of all, why don't you tell everybody who you are and about yourself?
I appreciate that. Coach Fino is what I'm known for in my marketplace. And that, I got into real estate in order to coach football, essentially. And although that's taken on a whole brand and look for itself in my career. And now I'm blessed to serve as the Director of Professional Development for Long & Foster. And in that role, I'm doing a lot of writing and delivering trainings, as well as coaching agents. And I'm excited to be spearheading this program, which is the succession plan for Long & Foster.
Wow, that's exciting. And I'm really glad that somebody's actually talking about this because, pretty much every business out there, right, has some sort of succession plan, or at least dreams of a succession plan. And I think a lot of real estate agents do not do that. Some that do are delusional about the money that they can get. I think it is something that is definitely possible, but it is something that, if not done right, can be extremely difficult. So let's first of all talk about why real estate agents don't do it, right? Why do agents just become dust in the wind and are rarely compensated for their book of business, right? If you're a book of business, if you're an insurance agent or you're a lawyer or what have you, a doctor even, you generally have a book of business that you could sell to another doctor when you retire. How come agents don't think this way?
Well, I think it starts with mindset. So many people, when they get into the business, view this as a job and even a career. And in that case, when you retire and you have some sort of pension, great, that would seem in that scenario. Very few agents as independent contractors actually operate that way, where they go ahead and save money away in some sort of IRA, et cetera, and have a retirement plan for them to move forward. So your next best aspect is to have the mindset of a business. And one of the best readings I've ever came across, the line said this: why even have a business if not to sell it at some point? And if you have the mindset that I'm starting day one a business, and at some point I want to be able to sell it, maximize it, and benefit from all that fruit of labor for a period of time, that would start you on the right path. So unfortunately, now we have 10,000 people a day, Americans a day, turning 65, looking at retirement in the face, and our industry is no different, yet they don't necessarily have an exit plan. And the good news is that as long as you give it a little time, you don't try to retire tomorrow selling your business, but as long as you give it a little time, you should be able to structure a pretty successful sale that allow you to benefit from your years of hard work for several years ongoing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So because I really do believe that most agents do not. I mean, agents are notorious for chasing FSBOs at 77 years old. I mean, I hate it, breaks my heart, but I know agents personally that I thought were old when I got in the business at 21, and there were agents that I thought were old when I got in the business. And I was in the business 25 years in the trenches, and now, a lot of kids nowadays would look at me and think I'm old. And these agents that I knew that I thought were old are still doing it. They're still out there, showing houses, opening lock boxes on Sunday mornings at 9. I mean, what happens there, right? I mean, I tell you what happens. They don't save money. They don't have a succession plan. And they have to. They're forced, right? They'll tell you, oh, I love the business, but that's all BS. So what do we do? How do we make sure, Rich, that we are not 77 years old? I apologize if you're 77 years old and you've been in business 57 years and you're listening to this, but what do we do to make sure we're not doing that? We're still not working in retirement age.
If you're agents and you want to be able to do it by choice, not by force, right? So and that's essentially your point. There's many, I'm sure some older agents that can nail it and they're doing it by choice. But when we talk about those that are doing it by force and really would have a nice retirement succession plan, the first things first, you got to realize that any business, if you have a consistent repeat sales, is saleable. I want you to get that, any business, because at the heart of it, what we're doing is we're transferring trust. I'm transferring the trust of my clients over years to an agent, to a newer agent to service them moving forward. If I'm able to transfer that trust, if I have that kind of relationships with my clientele over the years, and I feel good I can transfer the trust, you have a saleable business. And for frankly, why should the brokers be the only ones that benefit from building their businesses by selling and growing? Agents can too. Once you adopt that mindset, once you realize that at the heart of it, it's transfer of trust, it's a matter of just walking through a process. Now, it's a simple idea, can be a very complicated process if you don't make sure you dot all your I's and cross your T's.
Okay. So let's dig deep into it, right? What do we need to know? What do we need to start doing today? I want agents listening to this to pull their car over and write stuff down. Like what? Give me some notes. Give me some meat and potatoes.
No problem. First off, we got to look at your business, your existing business, in 4 different foundations. They look at any business this way. Okay. What's your database like? How many people are in there? What kind of details do you have on it? Is it just a name and address, or do you have the anniversary date, the home anniversary dates, the key interest, etc.? How well segmented is that database?
The money's in the data, right? I think that Gary Keller said that in his vision speech recently. I know that I didn't watch it, but I've heard several people say that was the consensus of the whole speech, was the money's in the data. And I've heard that before from other big companies, right? That's pretty much what everyone says. The money's in the data. So give me some specifics. What do I need to do? What data do I need to start collecting as an agent?
Well, it helps, first of all, if you have it in one place, right? You have one system, a CRM system, etc. Unfortunately, many agents still have a quote-unquote database in 3 or 4 different spots. Get it in the one place. Make sure you have your records straight, and your records are as detailed and parsed as possible.
You want birthdays, anniversaries,
Call notes,
jobs, current jobs.
Call notes. Some of the best ones I've seen, call notes from the last time they've talked to them, each interaction of that aspect of it. How well are you connected? Do you have their Facebook, and are they engaged in Facebook, etc.? The more detailed you have of the database, the higher value your business is to a buyer.
That you're connected on LinkedIn, that you're following, that you're a friend on Facebook. All those things would be considered data because you have then access to data.
That's exactly
of theirs, yeah.
And the recency of records shows evidence of you're still in communication with your database.
Okay, so tell me about that, because that's something I witnessed firsthand. You know what I mean? Like a lot of, when I sold my business, I wasn't calling them anymore, right? And we lost a lot of business just because we didn't have a proper follow-up system, whereas anybody else was even calling. I was mailing them stuff, but wasn't calling them. And I know that Brad and Carol, when they sold their business, Brad had a regular follow-up program where every quarter he would call them and say, Carol asked me to call you and just see how you are. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so not only do you have to have that database all clear and set to go, but you have to agree on a trust transfer process. And what I mean by that is once buyer and seller meet and we disc profile them, they have a discussion, they interview, and once they feel comfortable, they can trust each other. Now I can authentically transfer that trust to another client. But I have to be able to make that announcement. I got to be able to set that expectation. What Carol and Brad did is a clear example of a trust transfer process. For this deal to work, this is what the selling agent's going to do over a period of time to communicate with that database, and this is what the buying agent is going to do in the period of time to follow through and actually build those relationships. So you got to
so as a buyer and seller, and guys, he's not meaning buyer and seller of a home. He's meaning buyer and seller of a real estate book. Of business, clear expectations. Give me some more clear expectations that the buyer and seller of a book of real estate business need to map out.
So one of the things I'm dealing with now is I get, as people learn about this program, they bring to me their deal of where they thought they bought and had a deal in place, and there's mis-expectations. One of it was, I bought her business, I haven't gotten anything out of it, and she expects me to spend $3,000 in mailing a month. Whoa, wait a minute. And I said, well, what did your agreement say? Who was going to do what? We didn't identify that. She just has that expectation for me. So that's the kind of detail that you really need to have fleshed out. What you should be doing as a buying agent, asking that selling agent to set up the meetings where the 3 of you are there between you two and their top ambassadors. Who's the #1 person that's referred me over the years? Let's have that conversation. As it goes on, the the selling agent, the one selling their book of business, when they get a listing lead, they're going to go on the appointment with the buying agent with them, transfer the trust, but that buying agent's going to service it on out.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So you almost should like set up, 25 lunches in a row before settlement or directly after settlement, meaning settlement of the book of business, where both agents go and you're introducing them to to these ambassadors that are saying, this is why I use Carol. And ensure them that you're going to do the same thing. That's great advice. Okay, cool. What else?
So when you have the trust transfer activity, usually once we have that concept down place with buyer and seller, they're ready to go into it. The next thing they get into a discussion about is, how do I value my business? How much is my book of business worth?
Yeah, right. So how do you do this? Like then, and this is the key. I mean, I did have Steve Murray on. That's all he does. He's with Real Trends, and he just values businesses, and he started valuing teams. And he used a few examples. There was a big example of a team, and there's a Remax guy out of Alaska. I can't remember his name. Another guy bought it. I don't know if he was Remax or Keller, but I almost think it was another company that another guy bought it. 2.5 X EBITDA. 2.5 was his was his multiple that he used of the profit shown on a tax return. Carol and Brad's was, I believe, 3.5 or 3 even, I believe. So what are you seeing? What should somebody expect, and does it change from the amount of business? Do you use the same amount if you're a solo agent who sells 30 houses a year and has no assistants as someone who has a team of 30?
So that multiplier is really about the records. If you're saying that my earnings are X amount and I'm going to use a multiplier, but my database is of 20 people, but I'm closing 70 units a year. Okay, so now what am I really buying? That's a high risk scenario. So I'd actually tell you to use an EBITDA that might be less than 1 in that advice scenario.
You mean, wait a minute, let me slow you down here. Less than 1 on a single agent.
Yes, and that's
why?
Well, because it's a risky purchase. Okay, yeah, I have the production history that I can see, but your records of how well and what you did to get to that production is not existent, or it's horrible, or it's sloppy. So from the buyer, they're taking on a higher risk.
So not because they're a single agent, just because they have sloppy records.
Correct, and that could be a team too. But at the end of the day, as you know, if you had 2 houses together, one would give you every single detail of every time they change the water heater and here's the warranty or whatever.
Yeah.
And as Jack about that, you're just buying what you think you see.
With agents, they're usually lying, right? If they're sloppy with their records, it means they're sloppy with their taxes. It means they're sloppy with their profit. I hate to say it, but that would probably be an indicator that, like you said, that you don't pay much for that, right?
That's exactly it. So even at that time, that EBITDA multiplier is low. I mean, exceptionally low in that aspect because it represents the risk the buyer's taking on. But if your records are solid, okay, you have that solid database is one. Second is your transaction history. Now, what I like to do is take the transaction history, take all those addresses and put it in a program like Maptive. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But
no, tell me about Maptive. What is that?
Maptive allows you to put in a list of addresses and it pops it onto a map, like Bing Map for you, okay? And when you look at the map, you can see clearly if there's a geographic area where they own exceptionally well and allow you to give a market share. Now,
like a zip code or a neighborhood or whatever.
You got it. Now, take that very same thing from a buyer perspective, the buying agent, and take their business. You'll see where they might have an overlap. And so someone has an overlap or an adjacent, there's a greater success that the business will take off, the transfer of trust will go well versus 2 people on total opposite ends of the counter.
Oh, I was going to guess the opposite, actually. So I thought you were going to say the overlap, the agent could say, well, if you get out of the business, I'm going to just take your business from you anyways, right? Because we compete for the same listings. But you're saying the opposite. I was like, you're saying you don't want an overlap, right? You
want to be.
No, you do want an overlap, right?
Yes, you want overlap.
You do want an overlap. Yeah, I thought you were going to say you don't want an overlap.
No.
Then you could inherit those leads, so why pay for them? But you're saying you don't want you do want an overlap because the trust is there, and they're like, okay, I know you. You have a foot in the door. I want you to think about the word toolbox. What is a toolbox? A toolbox is a box full of tools that you use to build something great. At Real Estate Rockstars, we've created our own free toolbox. So everybody that comes on the show as a guest brings a tool with them, and we plow them all into this toolbox, and we give it away for our viewing audience to basically use as they wish. Everything we put in there is an actionable item that can be downloaded, can be printed, can be used immediately. And we got things like scripts and dialogues, checklists for teams, checklists to keep agents accountable, referral forms that are filled out at settlement to get referrals by your buyers and sellers. Everything you can think of that you could use on a regular basis about real estate is included in this toolbox. And it's helping agents worldwide sell more houses and make their jobs a lot easier and processes much more efficient. And the thing is, it's absolutely free. All you got to do is go to hibandigital.com/toolbox or text the word toolbox to 444-999. That's toolbox 444-999. Do it now.
And you would want to pay your competitor to transfer that trust, because if your competitor is really that tight, they can sell and transfer that trust to whoever. Right. So if they transfer it if the number one transfers it to the number two agent, there's an awareness as well that also breeds to a quicker trust level with those clients. So, that's an important way to look at it from a transaction history standpoint, let alone the financial data. What was your profits? One thing to say, this was your GCI. How much did you take home? How much were you paying Zillow or et cetera in order to get those leads, as opposed to how much of it was organic?
So the chances of success are increased if you're actually buying and selling with someone who you may consider a competitor.
Bingo.
Bingo. That's interesting. Okay.
From a client's trust transferability.
No, absolutely. I agree with it.
Yep.
I think most agents, though, are like, oh, I hate her.
That's very true.
You got to think differently than that. I mean, it's kind of like if Pepsi bought Coke or whatever. I mean, if RC bought Pepsi, their market share would probably go down because people would be like, who's RC Cola? You know what I mean? Royal Crown, and then Coke would just take over, but wouldn't be so much if Pepsi bought them.
That's exactly it. There's an overall brand awareness that leads to a quicker trust transfer.
I like that.
And it should convert well. So you have that aspect. And the last I look at is transaction. You have database, transaction history, finances, and then you get into market share. And what I'm interested in market share, it's one thing to look at it from a zip code standpoint. It's another look at it from a demographic standpoint. Okay, what percentage of your business is listing versus buy? Which is first-time home buyers? What's your average price point, etc. When you have that broken down very clearly as a seller of a business, you're now setting yourself up to maximize your return. What it's worth may be very different when you're buying business depending on the buying agent. So if I'm that adjacent agent, that number two, it might be worth a little bit more than if I'm an agent clear across town. Okay. So understanding the buyer agent profile as well will also help determine the overall value of that deal.
Yeah, because I remember some people I knew, and I mentioned this on the show one time before, and then I got a nasty email from somebody who was involved in a transaction and said I got it wrong, which I did. So I'm not going to use names, but I know of two agents, and they were in two different states, and the one bought the other one's business, and for a very nice multiple. It was $1 million cash. Actually, it was like a portion of the $1 million cash, and then lump sums thereafter, to total $1 million over like 2 years, let's say. Right? They actually moved out of town to retire, and they had to move back because the the person that bought it did such a terrible job. Such a terrible job, just ran it to the ground. So I think what you're saying is, you know, it's not just a buyer looking to find who's the most suitable. It's not just a seller looking to find who's the most suitable buyer. It's a buyer looking to find who's the most suitable seller, because that suitable seller could screw you up, especially if you're not getting a cash payment, which is very hard to get. I think that you know, one of the intriguing things about Steve Murray's interview with this Alaska sale, the guy was doing it was netting $1 million, and he was able to get $2.5 million, and it was paid in cash. So I think that very few agents have $2.5 million. Very few have, you know, even $100,000 to buy someone else's book. So how do you get around that, right? How is it? Because some people that I've had on the show say, Pat, you know, you can't sell a business, right? These agents who think they can sell their business are delusional, right? No agent really, very few agents have $1 million cash, or even $500,000 cash, or whatever. So what do you say to that, Rich? What are some ways to do this?
So the actual, you know, it's one thing to have all these business foundations, another to set a value. Now, how do we structure to make this happen? There's another component of it. How involved is the seller going to be, and for what period of time once this transaction starts? So it's one thing to say, here's my list, I'm off to Tijuana. Okay, from a seller's perspective, that's going to be a lower sale price, etc. But you can take that dollar amount, and we can get there one of two ways. I can write you a check today, or I can do it all based off referral fees over a period of time, or some combination of both, depending on the size and the value of that business. So, for example, Pat, let's say I valued your business at $2 million. Okay? Now, we can structure that to where I give you $1 million today and I pay $1 million over a 5-year period, but you agree to work with me side by side as if we're a team for the first 2 years. Okay, the Pat and coach team, if you will. And then we officially announce your retirement at the end of 2 years, and you're going to get the residuals off that aspect of it. Let's say we think your business is worth $1 million, okay? But you're not able to give me that much time. You only can give me 6 months work together. Guess what? I'll be happy to pay that over a 5-year period, referral fee only. Okay, so based on my ability to convert, etc., I'll give you a component of each deal all the way up to that amount. Do we guarantee that amount? That's a question that pops up. At the end of 5 years, if we only generated $800,000 in revenue for you, am I now on the hook for the other $2,000? Okay, that's a discussion that has to be thought of. Many folks going into this don't. Or do we have a situation where if I do it off referral fees and I hit that amount in 3 years, do I still have to continue to pay you for 2 more years? So when we structure it, it's usually some form of that. Your two extremes, all referral fee or all upfront. And it's usually some sort of period for that for residual over time.
Yeah, if I remember, Carol's right. She had 3 years where she would get the net of what she would normally get, right, if she was working, right? She moved to Boston from Virginia. So if she stayed in Virginia, she would have got, let me just make up a number, because gosh, it was like 600 episodes ago, but let's just say she made $400,000 net on her tax returns, and she would make that 3 years in a row, and that would essentially pay 3x, right?
Yep.
And then at that point, Brad gets 100% of what's left, and that was a great way to do it. And she was involved. She was well involved. Like, she was well involved. The letters came from both of them. There's a lot of introduction going on. I think that's really the way to do it. If you just run away, like I know when I sold mine to Mike Sloan, I went on book tour, and there was a 7-month period where I was traveling the country selling, 6 steps to 7 figures, and I was really busy. Matter of fact, that's where I met you, Rich, the first time when I came to Harrisburg, and you were running an office there. But during that time, I had very little interaction, and it was, I think it hurt the transition there. With that, I think that it's very important that in that first 2-year period is crucial. You almost have to be like, Well, big companies do this. I know a friend that sold his business, and he had to stay there for 3 years. They made him stay there as CEO for 3 years. That's part of the deal. And he couldn't find anybody that would let him just bail. And I think that is how it probably should be in real estate too, right? You should almost stay there and have to do certain things for at least 2 years.
Especially if you're buying someone with a team, and a key part is getting the transfer of those team members over to the new person. Especially. So if you're selling a team, you want to first go to your team members, but if none of your team members are in a spot to go ahead and purchase and take over, and you got to sell to an external leader, your team members are your key asset. I would say that they're your key asset more so than your database. Quickly buy your database, but your key asset. So if you're buying, you better make sure that that team leader is going to hang around for a little bit, at the very least, to transfer very personally and up close that team, if the team you're buying is of value to you.
Yeah. And if you're buying, the best deal for you is a referral fee off the top, because then the seller has to put their money where their mouth is, right? Their seller has to put their energy behind it, or they don't get paid, right? If you're a seller, that's probably the worst deal, because you can't just run off to the sunset. You're still there, but you know, it's fairer.
It's all about what you're handing off, right? And having skin in the game on both ends. What's funny is the Carol and Brad deal. For every deal that I find like that, I find about 3 that have failed. 3 that have done it.
Why?
And all 3 of them center around one thing: expectations. They
Really?
never clearly defined who was going to do what. The buyer assumed one thing, the seller assumed another. They trust each other. They were both good intentioned people, liked each other, but never took the time to document who's going to do what and for how long. And that's usually the ones that fail. And I find about 3 of those for every one successful.
Wow. That's fascinating. That's all about expectations. And that means, I mean, that's a lot, right? So I think the consensus is, right, you know, well, I guess, let me ask you this, right? How hard do you think it is for an agent building a team? Let's say an agent's building a team, and the goal of a team, nowadays, of course, is to get to a level where you remove yourself. You become an attractive character, or just somebody that's, that people think, is the real estate agent, but they never see him, hear from him or her, right? They built up this big team. All the agents and all the team members are doing all the work. How realistic that a team like that is going to be bought for cash?
Wow.
Like a company, right?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you it happens all the time. They're just called one brokerage to another. And the mindset has to change where agents decide to do that from a book of business to another. Can it be difficult? Sure. But what will increase your ability to succeed is getting yourself coached through the process. Period. End of story. If you go ahead and do that, if you try to do it on your own, how do I operate and run this team and go ahead and find a suitable seller and go through all the process? If you allow yourself to get yourself coached and connected in the way to situation, that person's going to make those connections for you and say, fill out this in the scenario to set your business up as possibly as we can. But I think it happens day in and day out from a brokerage standpoint, and I would love the mindset from an agent standpoint.
And now a word about Rebus University, the future of real estate training. From Las Vegas, Nevada, Trish Williams. How many listings are you taking every month now?
Last month I took 9 listings.
So you took more listings last month than you did all last year.
Yes, I did. Yeah, definitely. You need to do the course. Even if you're already a listing agent, you need to do this. You need to see what all the big guys are doing, what they're out there doing, what information is there. You never can know too much, and the information is completely valuable. It's more than I've seen anywhere in all the different training courses, and I've gone through quite a bit of different training courses. It's more valuable than any of those that I've seen, because it actually shows you the appointment and breaks it down to the call, down to the walk, down to the close. And it's not just one person and their way of doing it. There's 8 different people. So you see all this variation, and you can see what works for you.
if you want the listing success that Trish Williams has had, just type in the coupon code CLA50 on rebusuniversity.com. That's REBUS university.com for, get this, 50% off the certified listing agent course. That's CLA50. You won't regret it. Let's talk about that because this is a great topic. So I think from and I've been watching some deals, right? There's been some deals made recently, right? And so a lot of these big teams, I'm gonna just come out and say it, I don't care, right? A lot of these big teams have really, really, really poor profit. Mm-hmm. And they have what I call ECI, ego commission income, right? So they're like, hey, yeah, we made $3 million or $4 million, but their net is 5%, which is $200,000, right? And so most companies looking to buy other companies, might look at them and say, hey, that margin is way too small, right? There's got to be some what they would call value add, right? There's got to be something that we can do to make more money, right? To bring in more cash other than what's already being done. And the reason why companies are buying other companies and buying other teams or whatever with small margins is mortgage and title.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the institution of transaction fees. So they'll the agent, the team charge $195 transaction fee or whatever, and they'll say we'll buy them, and our transaction fees $595. Immediately we get $400 more per deal. Also, mortgage and title, right? They say we're going to get mortgage and title business. That's all we care about. Matter of fact, there's companies now that only care about profit in mortgage and title. They don't expect to make profit per transaction. So therein lies another question, which is, if you have this massive team, do you have to be an independent? This may be contrary to what, because you work with Long and Foster, may be contrary to what you want to say here, but at some level, do they have to be an independent in order to get sold?
No.
For a decent amount of money?
No. I hear what you're saying from that aspect of it, but at the end of the day, the value is from the buyer's aspect. You had said mortgage and title, and which is a common example. But at the end of the day, when I'm coaching a buyer, tell me, now that you've seen the full picture of what you're buying, what are you going to do to make more profit out of it, period? And that's part of what's going into their head from a questioning standpoint. So whether I'm buying an independent brokerage or I'm buying an existing team, the question doesn't change. It's just the numbers and how I profit from it is the same.
Yeah. So do you think if you were, let's say you personally were going to buy a business, mm-hmm. a real estate team, let's say it was a Long and Foster to Long and Foster transaction, and you had the choice, there was an agent with 75% listings and 25% buyers, or there was an agent with 75% buyers and 25% listings, which one would you buy?
The listing side, and I would pay more for it.
Why?
Because I have a system to go ahead and probably get 75 buyers versus 25 buyers on their end. So if I didn't have that buy-side system as well as I wouldn't pay as much for it. But because I believe I can increase the overall buying side as well.
It's easy to increase the buying side. Increasing the listing side is the dirty work. And if someone's already done that dirty work, it's worth more money, right?
That's exactly it. Now, you may have somebody that had a value. Well, what's their relationship with those buyers? Because those buyers are listings tomorrow. So that's why the eye of the beholder is pretty significant in this scenario. Me personally, that 75 listing side all day, because I know how to convert to get more and more buyers out of a listing. No better lead generation tool on the planet than a priced right listing that's marketed correct.
And so that there's something everybody needs to pay attention to. If you are going to try to sell your team or sell your book, it's going to be a lot more valuable and a lot easier to sell if you build a listing-based business. Mm-hmm. And if you build, in my belief, a referral-based business, like Carol did, right, where people know you and trust you. if you are building a business off of leads that you're buying on the internet, I would think that that is going to be harder to get a decent number or sell for, because anybody, right? Because as soon as you stop paying that dog, as soon as you stop, paying, if you have a big team and you're paying 10 grand a month to Zillow, right? As soon as you stop paying that, they're just going to sell it to another agent or 5 other agents, right?
That cost shows up in your EBITDA number. So just in flat out accounting, it shows up as being a less valued business to begin with, let alone the uniqueness.
Yeah, uniqueness. There's nothing proprietary.
That's right. The uniqueness of the business I'm looking to buy is when people have unique relationships with key people and are willing to transfer the trust of those relationships to me. If
Right.
all I'm doing is buying your zip codes.
Yeah, so if you have a uniqueness, and a uniqueness would be like if you have a 50% market share in Bolingbrook Farms, and everybody knows your name, that's a uniqueness, right? There's no uniqueness to showing up because you have a paid ad on, on some platform.
None. No, so one of the things, Carol, I interviewed Carol recently, and she had said, hey, the advice that I want you to give, and I want everyone listening to this podcast.
Yeah, everybody write this down.
Okay? I don't care if you just got licensed yesterday. I want you to operate today and every day forward as if you are building a business to sell it. Because when you do so, you will hold yourself accountable to keeping far better records and keeping your numbers and being aware of it. But more importantly, you'll build something that you will pay off, so you're not 77, 87, 97 showing FSBOs because you have to. I want you to be that age showing FSBOs because you want to, not because you have to. And if you put yourself in that position, now you've gotten the ability to sell something that you can structure a deal that can pay you for many, many years to come once you stop actively working it.
Man, that's deep. That's great, Rich. I really appreciate it. And guys, I know that, we've mentioned this episode several times here. And here's the funny thing. It is episode 69. But this is going to be close to 690. So I've probably had, I've had about 600 episodes since this episode, but I always send people back to this episode because very few people have come on the show and actually talked about actually selling their business and done it effectively where both people were happy, right? Where both people were like, that's a good deal. I mean, I really think Carol got a bombastic deal, right? She was able to get, and you'll listen to the episode and see, but a good solid number through several years in a row so she could move to Boston. And Brad, who bought it, Brad Wisely, was very happy with the transition and his business grew. As a matter of fact, Brad had done this before. He had bought another business, another person's business. So here's the funny part, guys. I mean, this podcast has changed dramatically since this episode. Go back to episode 69. I think we used to use sound effects back then throughout the show. There's the only way you could get it, because iTunes only does like the last 150. You can't even get it on. You have to go to hibandigital.com and just type in Greco, Greco, or 69. Just type in 69 in the search bar and it'll pop up. But I highly recommend you listen to that as a benchmark, and you can see I need to get her back, or probably get Brad back on the show so he can update us on what's happening what's happened in the last 3 years. And Rich, as you know, everybody that comes on the show here brings a free gift, right? And I know, Dave Kennord, who's with Long and Foster, recently brought us an incredible gift on leadership that is in our Agent Success Toolbox. And what can you give us today that our Rockstar listeners can listen to and improve their business with?
Well, I'll tell you what I'll be willing to do is give you the guide for the top 10 tips to make a successful sale and or purchase of a business. So at Long and Foster, we're blessed to have a system set up where we walk people through it, including the contracts, templates. Heck, we even got a mini MLS, you will, people willing to sell their business in that.
Oh, wow. Hey, let's stop right there. That's fascinating. That's fascinating, right? That's great. I love that. Okay, keep going. An MLS. How many agents are at Long and Foster now?
What are we, 11,000, I believe?
11,000 agents. So talk about it. Like a lot of people come on here about expansion, right? And they want to expand, open over here and here and here. And it's hard, man. It's hard. The one thing I'm finding with talking to expansion agents on this show, it's very difficult to talk about profit margins. Good Lord. Their profit margins it's tough. But if you could buy an existing business that's unique, it's proprietary, in another area, that would be a quick way to go from A to B, especially if you do it the way Rich is recommending. So an MLS for agents. Okay, keep talking, Rich.
So that's what we're able to provide here at Long and Foster for our agents. And in that, there's a whole bunch of training and guides for whatever. We're going to give you the top 10 list of the most common things to do, 5 successful things and 5 things not to do to help any agent listening to this going about their own program.
Wow. And I am going to put that on hibandigital.com/Rich Fino, and that's RICHFINO. That's hibandigital.com/Rich Fino. Now we'll also put it among all the other gifts that our guests have brought on hibandigital.com/toolbox, or you can text the word toolbox to 444-999. That's toolbox to 444-999. Mr. Rich, listen, if I'm ever in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, let's get together and break some bread, my friend.
I'd love to, Pat. You've added a lot of value to me, and I'm looking forward to continued years of that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Estate Rockstars. If this free content is giving you a ton of value, I want to ask a small favor in return. I need you to pull out your pointing finger and hit the subscribe button. Yes, hit subscribe, please. The more subscribers that we get on Real Estate Rockstars, the better guests are attracted to the shows. We'll get more guests from the top companies, from the top teams, and even more celebrity guests like Robert Kiyosaki and Barbara Corcoran. Also, if you're not a member of our free Facebook group, go to Real Estate Rockstars Radio right on Facebook and join the conversation. I'm on there myself on FaceTime Lives, and we have a lot of communications and questions about the show, and I'd love to see you there. And it's free. People ask me all the time, where am I on social media? I'm real easy to find. Just type in my name. My IG is I am Pat Hyben. It is blowing up on Instagram, adding tons of subscribers, and I'm on there probably twice a day. So definitely follow me on Instagram, as well as everywhere else. Thanks again for listening, and keep rocking.